has officially launched its first ever oil refinery. It's a major move that has the potential to change the game, not just for the West African nation, but for the entire continent.
For centuries, Africa's wealth has flowed outward. Resources extracted from its soil were sent across oceans, refined in foreign lands, and sold back at prices set by others. The riches that should have built African empires instead built the fortunes of those who saw the continent as nothing more than a supplier of raw materials. But now, something is changing. Senegal has done what many believed was impossible. It is refining its oil, not in France, not in a foreign-controlled facility, but on its land, with its people, for its future. This is not just an industrial achievement, it is a power shift. It is a declaration that Africa will no longer ask permission to control its wealth. Crude oil from Senegal's own Sangomar field is being refined at the Société Africaine de Raffinage for the first time. Not oil imported from foreign markets, not resources dictated by foreign contracts. This is oil from the soil of Africa, processed by the hands of its people. And yet the world is in shock. They said this would never happen. They said Africa would always be dependent, always at the mercy of those who control the industries that power the world. But today, in the heart of Dakar, the flames of a refinery burn, not just with oil but with defiance. For far too long, Africa has been rich in resources but poor in power. The wealth of the continent has been its greatest curse, plundered century after century, leaving behind a trail of underdevelopment, exploitation, and economic control by foreign powers. Every African nation has felt this burden in some form, and Senegal is no exception. The story of its oil is the same story that has played out in nations across Africa. A story of promises made, contracts signed, and wealth siphoned away before it could ever benefit its people. When oil was first discovered off Senegal's coast, it should have been a turning point. A moment where the country could use its natural wealth to build industries, strengthen its economy, and lift its people out of dependence. Instead, it became yet another resource controlled by outside interests. Western corporations, backed by governments that have long dictated Africa's economic policies, ensured that the crude extracted from Senegalese land and waters would leave the continent to be refined elsewhere. The system was designed so that even the oil beneath Senegalese soil would generate more profits for foreign markets than for Senegal itself. This is not unique to Senegal. This is the colonial blueprint that Africa has lived under for generations. The industries that refine raw materials, that create finished products, and that generate real wealth have always been placed outside of Africa. The continent has been locked in a cycle where it extracts, exports, and then imports back what it should have been able to produce for itself. The result? A continent overflowing with resources but struggling to control its destiny. Senegal's oil industry was set up to serve external interests from the very beginning. The Société Africaine de Raffinage, established in 1961, should have been a milestone in African industrialization. But like so many projects during the post-independence period, it was structured in a way that kept true economic power out of African hands. Rather than refining its crude, Senegal was refining imported oil, meaning it was still at the mercy of global oil markets, still dependent on foreign suppliers, and still forced to operate within an energy system designed by outsiders. For decades, Africa's greatest struggle has not been a lack of resources but a lack of control over those resources. From oil in Nigeria and Angola to gold in Ghana and South Africa, from uranium in Niger to copper in Zambia, the continent has been systematically stripped of its ability to benefit from its wealth. The infrastructure needed to refine, manufacture, and process raw materials was deliberately kept outside of Africa, ensuring that economic power remained elsewhere. This is why Senegal's decision to refine its oil is not just a business decision. It is an act of defiance against a system that was built to keep Africa on the margins of global wealth. The historical reality is clear. No nation has ever become powerful by exporting its raw materials and letting others profit from refining them. The West did not rise to economic dominance by selling unprocessed resources. China did not become an industrial powerhouse by shipping its raw goods abroad and waiting for finished products to return. Every major economic power has one thing in common: it controls the industries that turn resources into wealth. Yet, Africa has been told for generations that its role is different. It should focus on extraction while others handle the complex industries. That it should be satisfied with exporting its gold, diamonds, oil, and minerals while other nations refine, manufacture, and profit. This lie has been the foundation of global economic structures, keeping Africa locked in a state of dependency. Senegal is breaking this cycle. It is taking a step that many African countries have been denied for decades. By refining its crude, it is rejecting the old model that dictated Africa's place in the world economy. It is proving that African nations do not have to accept a future where their wealth is forever controlled by others. This is why the world is watching. This is why headlines are being written. When a country takes control of its resources, it challenges the entire economic order that has kept Africa in a position of weakness.
So